Is the third time the charm, or did the president just reveal his true feelings? Another presidential statement, and he blames both sides again. And they just lost everything. Their daughter murdered, and they're the ones speaking up for the nation. This is the State of America tonight.
But you also had people that were very fine people on both sides.
There is no moral equivalency between the KKK, the neo-Nazis, and anybody else.
What about the alt-left that came charging at the, as you say, the alt-right? Do they have any semblance of guilt?
Mr. President, good people don't pile around with Nazis and white supremacists.
He's got to fix this, and Republicans have to speak out.
I think that yesterday's conference, it was a failure of leadership.
Hello, everyone. I'm Kate Baldwin, live in New York. To our viewers watching around the world, this is State of America Tonight. What was supposed to be a news conference about infrastructure, of all things, quickly careened off a cliff and landed the country in uncharted territory. President Donald Trump, at a pivotal moment in his presidency, blaming the violence in a weekend rally on both sides.
Well, I do think there's blame. Yes, I think there's blame on both sides. You look at both sides. I think there's blame on both sides, and I have no doubt about it, and you don't have any doubt about it either.
We'll make no doubt about this. One side was neo-Nazis and white supremacists holding a hate rally in Virginia. The other side was people protesting those hate groups. There is no moral equivalency there, period. His vice president, though, stands by him.
The president has been clear on this tragedy, and so have I. I spoke at length about this heartbreaking situation on Sunday night in Columbia. And I stand with the president, and I stand by those words.
Well, Donald Trump says there are two sides to blame for the deadly violence. There seems also to be two sides of President Trump at the moment. The one who reads prepared remarks off a teleprompter like this one from Monday.
Racism is evil, and those who cause violence in its name are criminals and thugs.
And then there's the other side, the off-the-cuff and off-the-rails President Trump of yesterday.
But you also had people that were very fine people on both sides.
Well, here are some of the people that reporters from Vice documented in Charlottesville, marching through the University of Virginia with tiki torches, chanting anti-Semitic and racist slurs. To be clear, that is how the president is reacting when he said to both sides. That is how he blames both sides. That is how the president is reacting to hate and discrimination. And also, to be clear, this is how other presidents, the past two, have reacted to other horrific acts of hate. Watch this.
The face of terror is not the true faith of Islam. That's not what Islam is all about. Islam is peace. These terrorists don't represent peace. They represent evil and war.
If we can find that grace, anything is possible. If we can tap that grace, everything can change. Amazing grace. Amazing grace. How sweet the sound.
In case you missed it, that is not how President Trump reacted yesterday. For any American, one thing that is not hard to do is call out neo-Nazis, the KKK, white nationalists. Quite easy. Many members of Congress did that in the aftermath of the president's shocking remarks. Senate Majority Leader Mitch McConnell, he put out a statement saying this: there are no good neo-Nazis, and those who espouse their views are not supporters of American ideals and freedoms. And here's House Speaker Paul Ryan. He tweeted this: we must be clear, white supremacy is repulsive. This bigotry is counter to all this country stands for. There can be no moral ambiguity. But what seems much harder for Republicans to do, though, is call out the president for what many say is moral ambiguity. Only a few have. Here's one.
Pathetic, isn't it? Just pathetic listening to this and hearing these marchers. The president has to totally condemn this. And this is not about winning an argument. This is about the fact that now these folks apparently are going to go other places and they think that they had some sort of a victory. There is no moral equivalency between the KKK, the neo-Nazis, and anybody else.
Governor John Kasich. And then this from Senator Lindsey Graham. Mr. President, I encourage you to try to bring us together as a nation after this horrific event in Charlottesville. Your words are dividing Americans, not healing them. Add to that this. 5 of the nation's top military leaders have now spoken out about the violence, saying intolerance and hatred are unacceptable in the ranks of the U.S. military. Pentagon correspondent Barbara Starr explained to me earlier how extraordinary these statements really are.
It is very rare, Kate. To be clear, none of them are directly challenging the president or criticizing the president. But make no mistake, the Joint Chiefs have now stepped of their own free will into this national conversation.
And what cannot be lost in the politics of all of this is the life that was ended Saturday. 32-year-old Heather Heyer. Friends and family gathered in Charlottesville for a memorial service in her honor today. She's remembered as passionate, kind, and a sweet soul and a strong advocate. She was killed Saturday when a man intentionally drove his car into a crowd of counter-protesters. Heather is lost, but not forgotten. And that is why a crowd of people packed a local theater to pay their respects. And wearing purple in her honor, her favorite color. Her mother talked about the impact Heather made on the world.
And I think the reason that what happened to Heather has struck a chord is because we know that what she did is achievable. We don't all have to die. We don't all have to sacrifice our lives. They tried to kill my child to shut her up. Well, guess what? You just magnified her.
And so today, I want the final words of my opening monologue to be those of Heather Heyer's. From her final Facebook posting, actually, she posted it months ago. It said this: if you're not outraged, you're not paying attention. Let that sit in. And with that, let's figure out where we are in this moment as a country and where we go from here. David Chalian, our CNN political director, he's here with me now. Yes, David, it's politics. There is a lot of politics every day and involved here as well. But today, it seems and is more than that. Where is this presidency right now in the aftermath?
Well, it's actually the real meaning of politics, right, Kate? Because it's about the people, the American people, our character, what the country's fundamental values are, and how the president has not been able to espouse them. I mean, that is, I know we use the term politics to mean sniping left and right, but this is about the very fiber of our body politic. And I think you're asking the right question. Where to from here? Who steps in now to fill the leadership vacuum? You pointed out some responses that the Republicans are offering, but we are still short of seeing what actions those in positions of leadership can take to get the president back on course because he is so far afield from where the American people are. And yet, we're learning from Jeff Zeleny, our senior White House correspondent at CNN right now, who spoke to 2 people who visited Donald Trump in Trump Tower today, saying that he's plunging ahead with no regrets whatsoever. If the president doesn't have regret for what happened yesterday, how can Mitch McConnell and Paul Ryan just leave their statements at denouncing the hateful racism and anti-Semitism? At some point, the leadership needs to start taking different kinds of actions and words that deal directly with President Trump, who, according to these sources, he has absolutely no regret.
You know, we talk often about words and actions. Words are one thing. Actions are the things that people are looking for. Here, it's different, and you made that point. Words and actions both matter here. The words of the president opened a real wound. The actions of leaders in his party now is going to be the real deciding factor on where this country goes from here.
There's no doubt about that. And the silence from some is deafening. Those working inside the White House on the president's team, again, how some of these leaders on the Hill in his own party are dealing with him. It's one thing to denounce the racism, but if a president who clearly has lost touch with the American people and has totally abdicated the moral authority of the office today is saying, I have no regrets, this is just like controversies in the campaign and all in the media are hyperventilating and breathless about this, if that's his attitude towards this, then I do think we have to beg the questions of those leaders, what next? What are you going to do about this?
That question will be asked of all of them as soon as they come on TV. Great to see you, David. Thank you.
Thanks, Kate.
Coming up for us, the damage that is done, is it undoable? Can the White House and the president fix this open wound that's now exposed? What does the president do? What does his party do? David Chalian offered up some good questions. Let's pose them to the panel. That's next.
Advertising on podcasts has never been easier. Reach millions in a way that display ads simply can't. Sign up for your own podcast advertising dashboard at palegroove.com/CNN and get started today. There's no better way to speak to those you've never met. Get ahead of the curve to market your business, product, or media through podcasts that feature household names like this show at palegroove.com/CNN. That's PALE groove.com/CNN.
When the history of this presidency is written, the president's remarks yesterday will be an important chapter. But what happens from here on out, how that chapter ends, that is still to be written. Let's get to the panel tonight. With me tonight, Zerlina Maxwell. She's Director of Progressive Programming for Sirius XM. She was also an aide to Hillary Clinton's campaign. Steve Rogers, he's a former advisor to the Trump campaign, currently on the advisory board for Trump's re-election campaign. Paul Begala is here, advisor to President Bill Clinton, of course, and Democratic strategist and also a CNN political commentator. And Alice Stewart, a CNN political commentator, a Republican strategist who ran communications for Senator Ted Cruz's presidential bid. Guys, thanks for coming in. We're going to talk about this the whole show, so let's just get to it. Paul, with everything that has happened in the past 24, 48, 72 hours, where are we?
I'm shocked that so many people are shocked. Okay, but we're shocked. The country is shocked. I think, unlike me, most Americans are people of goodwill, and they really believe that their president can grow into the job. And a lot, even on the day he won the election, a colossal number, 60% of Americans thought he was unfit for the job in terms of character and temperament. And yet, a lot of people took a risk on him. And I accept that. In some ways, it's even admirable. He has not grown into it. He's not going to grow into it. He's a 70-year-old man. He hasn't changed his hairstyle in 35 years. He's not going to change his character now. But he revealed his true temperament. Lincoln said, most people can handle adversity, but if you really want to test someone's character, give him power. This man now has power. He has absolute power in terms of nuclear weapons, and he has revealed it. He has a bizarre and very un-American affinity for neo-Nazi groups, and he revealed that yesterday. And I think that's what people are trying to digest. I have to say, I saw it coming. I helped a super PAC that opposed Mr. Trump. But I think for most Americans, they're really shocked that our country could have a president who could express somehow moral equivalence between Nazis and those who oppose Nazis.
What do you say to that, Steve?
Paul, I think that's an unfair characterization with all due respect to the president. He was very, very comprehensive yesterday. He certainly condemned white supremacy. He condemned white nationalism. He condemned hate. He condemned bigotry. He did all of those things from his heart. He actually believes that all these things that I just articulated to you are wrong for America. He also went on to say something, if I may offer up to the panel, something that was missing in this whole conversation. At the end of that news conference, he started to talk about love for one another. He started talking about coming together as Americans and, more importantly, solving the problem as we move forward.
Steve, if he said all of that, then why has there been this flood of criticism coming from even his own party?
Let's
be honest.
I have an answer to that. He talked about, we hear about blaming two sides. There's a third side. There is a third side with regard to blame. And the third side are the career politicians, since as long as I lived, who have promised so much to so many and delivered to so few. And the president is delivering on jobs. He's delivering on the economy. He's delivering on a strong military. There's a lot of good this president's doing. We're going to get to the jobs
in a second because he just lost a few jobs on his jobs council. I want to get to that, though. But I need to stay in this moment.
Sure.
Two sides, Zerlina. What do you say?
There's not two sides when one side is the Klan. And I think it's really clear in this particular moment that this is not about partisan politics. Republicans need to name Donald Trump and say what he said yesterday was a moral disgrace. It is a test for this president to stand up against white nationalists. That's a layup. That's easy to do, and he failed to do it more than once. Clearly, what he said on Saturday is what he really believes. But in the larger context, this, like Paul said, should not be surprising if he's calling for the execution of the Central Park Five and all of the other things that he's said
If you believe it's
that are racist.
not surprising, is the damage done undoable?
I don't know. I don't know the answer to that. I think this is going to get worse before it gets better because he opened a really raw wound in this country. The Confederate statues that went up around the 1920s were a response to Reconstruction. They did not go up after the Civil War. They went up to remind black people that you are less than. There is a racial hierarchy that we are following, and white people are at the top of that hierarchy. That's what those monuments stand for. They should all be taken down and put in a museum somewhere.
I would even argue that it may have started with monuments, and this has gone far beyond any monument or statue the way this goes.
The president's been in office for 6 months. What about, and it seems like you guys don't want to talk about this.
You think he needs more time to be able to be able to take on the Klan, Steve?
Please hear me out. Please hear me out. He's taken on the Klan. He certainly has taken on David Duke, et cetera, and all those
How are there
nuts.
two sides? Just,
But
that is very
there
simple
are no
for everyone
two
to know.
sides. You guys are asking questions. You're not letting me answer
No,
them.
we're having a great debate.
Okay,
This is your first time on the show.
No,
Welcome
great.
to the fun.
Listen, I do respect everybody's opinion, all right? But I'd like
This
to
is
have,
how this show works,
I'd like
Steve,
to
don't
have
worry.
the time to answer, okay? Look, he has made it very clear that these people are bad. His idea of two sides, first of all, New York Times, even the ACLU said that they saw, all right, people on the other side with pats and clubs, okay? Now
I get you.
Okay,
The only
you hear
reason I'm
me?
cutting you off is I know that comes directly from the talking points that the White House handed out. And
I
that's
saw-
the only
well, let me-
reason I'm going.
let me make
I'm
one
just
thing
going to stop
clear.
that there. Alice Stewart has not had
Okay.
the chance to talk at all. Alice, I want to bring you in on this. On this point, Republicans, their response. What do they do now? You've got a few who have called the president out. Is that enough? Do Republicans need to call the president out?
There's a lot more than a few. Pretty much
Calling him out directly.
Calling him out, yes. Look, I commend the president for denouncing racism and bigotry. However, the moment that he put that on the same playing field as those who are out there protesting against racism and hatred, that's when he lost a lot of people. He is on an island when he puts them on the same agenda. Look, the RNC has had conversations. I talked with a chairwoman today, and they're meeting next week. They're going to pass a resolution to denounce the KKK. They want to send a clear signal.
So they know there's a problem here.
With regard to anyone who does not fully and 100% unequivocally denounce racism and hatred. There is no place in the Republican Party for the Klan, for neo-Nazism, for David Duke, for white supremacy, and it's important that Republicans say we are not associated with them. We do not want their vote, we do not want their support, and we do not condone their activity. And we'll see that action come out, and I think it's an important message that what the president is saying with regard to a moral equivalency is not reflective of Republicans as a whole.
Stand by, guys. We're going to take a break. We're going to continue this conversation. We are far from over on this. We just need to stop and forgive each other. Those are the words of a grieving father. Is this now where the nation should be looking for guidance and moral clarity right now? The president's role in that? That's coming up next.
She wanted to put down hate. And for my part, we just need to stop all this stuff and just forgive each other. I think that's what the Lord would want us to do. Just to stop, just love one another.
That's Heather Heyer's father, Mark, at her memorial service today, grieving but somehow offering her friends, family, and the nation what seems to be sorely lacking at the moment: moral courage. Let's get back to the panel. Let's start there, though, Paul. If the president has given up the mantle that a president holds, which is moral authority in the country, where do people look to get that?
Well, certainly from Mr. Heyer. That was an extraordinary comment that he made. But we must demand that our president rise to the occasion. You know, I remember when the Challenger blew up and President Reagan healed this country. He spoke to us. I was a student, and we all gathered around the TV and we watched. I worked for Bill Clinton when terrorists attacked the Oklahoma City Federal Building. By the way, happened to be white, male, American terrorists. He helped heal. He went to Oklahoma City and helped to heal. When another white domestic terrorist attacked in Charlotte, South Carolina, the president went, President Obama. President Bush famously helped heal the country when Muslim terrorists attacked us on 9/11. So all of the presidents of my lifetime have had the capacity to step up, except this man. And the fact that he was not in Charlottesville today, he could have learned. You know, I guess I still, like most people, want him to grow in the job, but I know he won't. But if he had gone, that community would have welcomed him. I have family and friends in Charlottesville. They would have welcomed him, and he would have seen their pain. He would have understood that this was not a both sides
That's something
deal.
I wanted to actually ask about. You listed out a couple examples of when you think of recent tragedies of people being shot and or killed because of their race, because of their political views. Steve Scalise shot. What happened in South Carolina, the church. They were horrific moments.
Right.
And afterward, I'm sorry to say, nothing changed.
Right.
Is this different? Do you think this is different, or are we going to be 2 weeks, 3 weeks out, and nothing's going to be different? The president, from our reporting, says he has no regrets. He's moving forward with his agenda.
I don't think anything changes unless the president changes, and I don't know that he has the capacity to change. And so maybe we need to change who the president actually is. And that means that Republicans need to step up and hold him accountable, whether that means censure him or follow alongside some Democrats who are calling for the impeachment. I'm not saying here that
they're definitely
he should
a long
be
way
impeached,
from that,
but what I'm saying is that this is a very serious moment for the country. It is not just another tragedy. It is not just another moment in which we're just going to go back to regular business as usual. This is a tipping point, I think, for the country, and it is a symbol of what the president wrought. The campaign last year was divisive and racist. He said racist things repeatedly last year. Some of those rallies looked like Klan rallies. If you had the sound off, it looked like something you hadn't seen in generations.
Where we are today, do you think the president should have been at the Charlottesville Memorial?
We don't know yet if he's going to go. He may be going. We don't know that.
The Charlottesville Memorial today for this memorial service for this woman
I
who
can't
was
answer
killed.
that question. I don't know what's on his plate. I know there are a lot of problems.
It just should. I'm not saying schedules change.
Look, I don't know.
Tragedy happens.
Look, I'm not.
He's
That's like me saying you should do this and you should do that.
Yeah,
I don't
you
know
do it all
what's
the
going
time.
on.
Everyone tells me what the media is supposed to do, Steve.
But the point that I think what he is doing, we've got to keep in mind, he's got a lot of ministers and clergy around him from throughout this country. He has created a lot of good relationships. There's an Office of Interfaith Initiatives at the White House. I could see him stepping up with a lot of those fine individuals and trying to move forward with the solution. We're not doing any good 24/7 talking about the problem. The problem was here over a century. And I still go back to what I said when I opened up. As a cop, I was a cop on the streets. I remember having these same conversations in the 1970s. And the blame, in my view, it's not the president talking, in my view, because I said he missed the third group, is that politician after politician has promised so much to so many and delivered to so few, especially in the inner cities, especially where there are poor people, especially where there are people in need. And that's both sides. That's not just Democrats. That's Republicans, too.
Look, I think we can all agree that we're not going to get what we're seeking out of this president. I think the fact that his initial delay in responding to this, saying he needed to get the facts. This is an issue of fact check. This is a
and by the way, please, this is not someone who's held off jumping to conclusions before I could go into the list. Sometimes he was right, sometimes he was horribly wrong. But continue.
It should have been his gut reaction to unequivocally denounce this. I think we need to look to pastors, to clergy, to politicians. Senator Tim Kaine of Virginia made some phenomenal statements today surrounding memorial service. And we've had other politicians across the country also. And it's incumbent upon us as Americans, as Christians, as people of all faith, colors, religious backgrounds, to come together. And as Heather's mother said today, channel our differences into righteous action. We all disagree on many things, but let's take this opportunity to channel it to righteous action.
But it's going to get worse. I say that with a heavy heart. In part because the president has now given aid and comfort to the enemy. You see, you said nothing happens after these. You're wrong. After 9/11, when our president, my president, went to the mosque on Friday. And
Right.
you know what didn't happen? We didn't turn on our Muslim brothers and sisters. We didn't intern them the way we did the Japanese in the 40s. The things that don't happen because of presidential moral leadership don't get covered. But this president now has given aid and comfort and encouragement, maybe unwittingly, but I think directly.
Well,
to the
at the
David
very
Dukes
least,
of
I
the
know
world.
this. I
It's
mean
gonna
this
get
when
worse.
I say this is a moment in our nation's history. The state of America is a big question mark for me tonight. Where we go from here on out to tomorrow and who the leaders stand up and who they are, that is to be determined. Thank you guys for being here tonight. Thanks for having the discussion. I really appreciate it. This is day 209 of President Trump's administration. That's the state of America tonight. We'll see you back here tomorrow. Thanks so much for subscribing to State of America. Let us know how much you love it with a comment in iTunes. Follow me on Twitter at Kate Baldwin. And remember, you can always watch State of America on CNN International at 2:30 p.m. Eastern Standard Time, 8:30 p.m. Central European Time. That's still not enough options? You can head to CNN Go.